Oh, hi. Welcome to the 14th episode of Let's Talk Retail, the digital initiative of the Philippine Retailers Association. I was just going to a throwback mode, looking at some materials uh, from our guest today, company guest today. It's one of my, in my career journey, it's one of my most memorable stops. So as I prepared for this conversation with the president, I was looking at memories of a very memorable stop. So let me just put that aside and let's get this conversation going. This is Let's Talk Retail, our 14th episode. We've come a long way since the pandemic. Now, I'm very excited for our guest because, as I said, it was one of my most memorable stops in my career journey. And our guest today, our guest company and our guest, right, is a regional player which is now mainstream, a 36 billion peso retail giant. They had an IPO about 2015, very memorable one of the best that the stock exchange has seen. So let me call in our guest. He's the President Chief Operating Officer of Metro Retail Stores Group Inc., or what they call Mrs. G in the stock exchange. He's a very seasoned retail person. Prior to being the president of Mrs. G, he was the company's Chief Merchandising and Marketing Officer. And before that, he was with Philippine Family Mart, Rustan Supercenter, Avon Cosmetics, and Jollibee Corporation, to name a few. He's recognized as a strategic and results-oriented leader with a constant track record of achieving sales and profit targets. So, results guy, come on, let's just give it up for Mr. Manuel Alberto, President of Metro Retail Stores Group. Hello, Manuel. Hi, nice to see you again.
Hi, CJ. Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me. It's a great pleasure.
All right, so you have your coffee?
Yes.
All right, let's get this conversation going. All right, and audience, our listeners and our audience, have your coffee as you listen to my coffee chat with Manuel Alberto. All right, let's start off by your journey, your career journey, Manuel. Seasoned retail. Can you tell us about how you got to Metro Retail? What was that route that you took?
Okay. So this is at the risk of kind of exposing my age to.
It's all right.
Well, I'm proud to say, CJ, that I've been a retailer pretty much my whole career life. No? Starting with my first job right out of college. No? This is in the US, no? Where I had the opportunity to become a management trainee in a mid-sized retail company in the West Coast. No? And then 30 years later today, I've gained management experience in almost all kinds of retail formats, name it, from some of the best retail brands, as you noted earlier. So most of it, though, was in the mass food retail side format. The longest of which is working with Rustan Supercenter Inc., with Donnie Tantoco's Shopwise, and then eventually the Rustan Supermarket. But I also had the opportunity to work in other formats, other than the supermarket mass food retail. I also had a chance to work for a convenience store, as you noted, and also department stores. And now I also had the chance to work in other types of format like QSR, Jollibee Foods Corporation, and Avon, which is a direct selling. So different kinds of formats through the 30 years. So from a single store manager, I was able to work myself up to a multi-store manager in operations before moving into the other avenues of retail, from merchandising and even marketing, and now in general management. So practically, you can say, CJ, almost all aspects of the retail industry, which I am now happy that I'm applying it here now in Metro Retail Stores.
In your journey, what were the three key lessons that you have, or you had.
Okay, so the most fundamental thing about retail is that it's not rocket science. It's the best analogy I can make is if you started your own sari sari store, right, and you were dedicated to running all aspects of the business, from operations, merchandising, marketing. It's really about passion, right? Retail is not for everybody, and you have to have you have to love retail to be in it. You know, I I I I went to a good school. I took up my master's. Most of my classmates wouldn't even dream of going into retail. They want the coat and the office in Makati, but it's a very exciting a career for anybody, and the ability and the opportunity to grow as a career is tremendous. In the Philippines, there is a lot of single store managers, but very few multi stores. To the point that when our industry was growing, what did we have to do? We had to hire expats, right? And 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 for me, I had this recent talk with AIM. We both went to AIM, and I
Yes.
was talking to some of the graduates, and I told them about my passion in retail and the opportunities. It was interesting to see the reaction that they didn't realize that there's so much into retail that they can get into. No? So it's a great field, but you have to love it. You have to have the passion for it. Otherwise, you can't afford to be mediocre. And this is one of the things I've learned from a lot of my mentors. No? Donnie Tantoco included. No? He says that if you don't love what you do in retail, then don't stay in it, because the passion is what will drive you. Right. So
I have a,
those.
yeah, I have a question on passion. Is it innate or is it taught?
Well, I'll tell you this. When I got my first job out of college, retail wasn't my first choice.
Okay. What was
The
it?
only reason why I took retail was that this was in the U.S. and this retail company was only one of the few companies that was willing to sponsor my work visa.
Okay.
Yeah, and but I think it's both innate, meaning you have to love working with customers. You have to be willing to roll up your sleeves and work on the details. And again, it's not rocket science. No, it's just hard work, dedication, passion. You have to love that kind of work, right? Otherwise, you're not going to make it. You'll just pass. No, and I mean, it's a choice, right? But if you love it, I mean, I've been in this field for 30 years now, and to date, I can't imagine myself doing anything else.
Okay, 30 years in the industry, and you made that leap to Metro Retail. What made you choose Metro Retail? It's a regional player.
Well, what's fantastic about Metro Retail is, number one, it's a multi-format retail, and it has a wonderful brand. The brand equity and the brand affinity, especially in the South, is wonderful. The relationship that they develop with their customers through generations, amazing, and you can feel it now when you're there. Um, I was very impressed, upon joining, to see the infrastructure that the company leaders have put into through the years, from the IT infrastructure to all the way to the supply chain, right? And being huge, presence all over Visayas and now Luzon, and with the brand, yet there's still so much potential, right? So this is what attracted me when I had the opportunity to work. I've never worked for a bigger retail conglomerate, but yet I see the potential, and I know I can make a difference. Those are the things that attracted me. I would never choose to work for a company if I don't feel I can make a difference.
Okay, so make a difference. Now, as a professional manager, you were entering a company which started as a family-owned corporation.
Yes.
And it grew. And we have except for Ma'am Sally, you'll have the second and third generation in play. And many of our retailers have that same situation. So how do you now work as a professional manager with the founder families?
Well, I think if you look at, as you said, if you look at the history of retail development in our country, it all started with the family. We don't have the kind of multinational retailers you see globally. And I having worked with Rustans in the past, I know what it's like to have the family's values imprinted all over the organization. And a lot of the success of the top retailers, which are all family owned, is mainly because of the passion and the values that the founders have put in, right? Metro, in its 4 decades, the success that it enjoys today was because of the foundation that the owners, Victor and Sally, have put into the business and their children. And you can see, there in Metro there are still employees that were there from the very beginning, or some at least in the next 5 to 10 years. They're a group of dedicated employees that build the foundation of its success that we're enjoying today. And that's really something that you cannot erase or change. It's something that you want to further enhance and develop and permeate through as you evolve as an organization. Diba? You don't want to lose the value of those core values that the owners and the foundations have put into the business. You harness it, and you always have to remember where you came from. That's so powerful. Identity, a sense of belonging is very important. That's your DNA, right? It's what makes you tick. It's what makes you compete and win in the marketplace. So you have to harness that.
Okay. When you walked into the doors of Metro in Market, what was the challenges that you were seeing facing you, and how is it now after more than 2 3 years?
Well, for me, when I first joined, I was very lucky to have the opportunity to first be appointed as Chief Merchandising and Marketing Officer. Running those two departments allows anyone the opportunity to properly immerse, because those two are basically the source and foundation of your strategies. What makes you different in competing in the marketplace. So I was able to immerse in all aspects of the business, including how we're organized, diba? How we make decisions, what is the corporate culture. And what I saw was, I looked at what were the sources or the factor that drove its success today. It's really a lot of the heritage, the passion and dedication of the people to bring it where it was. But of course, the opportunity that I saw was as consumers are changing, and our consumers are changing very fast. And as you're expanding at the rate we're expanding, there was a need for us to kind of refocus on understanding our customers better and how they are the same and different according to the different markets that we serve, right? And make yourself more relevant and relatable. Walking into that, I felt, there's a need for us to kind of get in touch with our customers closer, because even just in the last 10 years, our customers have evolved. And a lot of it is, maybe the aspirations are still the same, but with the changes in the lifestyle, the changes in technology and so forth, there was a need for us to kind of update ourselves.
Let me pursue the topic on the evolution of the customer. Okay. How would you describe the Filipino customer now, the Filipino shopper, especially with the pandemic?
Of course, A lot of that we get from consumer research studies, no, that are available, Nielsen, Kantar, and so forth. No, what's always been interesting to me, when I review year on year how customers are changes, is when I look at the ranking of store choice. Diba? There's always a ranking and a
Yeah.
rating of when I decide which store brand
Yeah.
to go to, how it changes. I remember in one of my earlier career, when I was working for Macro, if you remember that. No?
Yes.
It's a wholesale club. It was one of the first wholesale club here in the country. One of the most important things for customers then was price. I mean, it was so important. If you look at it today, I mean, even pre-pandemic, before the pandemic,
Yes.
it's already ranked number 5, number 6.
So what's number 1 and 2?
Access, convenience.
All right.
People are more time starved than ever. It's not really just about saving money and making the budget count, but it's also the making your time work for you. Everybody's working now. The mom and the dad are both working now, and convenience is becoming more important. So access, convenience, and ease of convenience, meaning it's easy to shop in your store, easy to find everything. Everything's there, and it's fast and friendly. You can go in and out as fast as you can. But access, convenience is becoming more and more important, and that's why you're seeing the proliferation of convenience stores recently. It's the highest growing format today, in the last 5 years to 10 years now. Customers are changing, and it's important that you're attuned to those changes, because at the end of the day, as a retailer, you're serving customers, right? And if you're not attuned, and everybody's talking about innovation, right? Innovation is not just technology, right? It's really just understanding how your customers are changing. But having said that, CJ, one of the most exciting part of the prospects of retail in our country is this statistics, diba? Out of the total retail's spend, the business of retail, only 40% or so are modern retail. The rest are just traditional. These are the mom and pops,
Yeah.
sanitary stores, the wet markets. And when you think about that, that really represents the opportunity for growth, right? That's really the exciting part. That and as our consumers are getting younger, there are also rapid development and urbanization happening. It's not just NCR or Metro Manila or Metro Cebu, but there's a lot of markets that are evolving outside of those key areas that are still, a few years behind in aspirations. I mean, they're all looking for national brands. When can we have Adidas here? When can we have Jag jeans here? Right? They don't have to travel to the closest big city to do that. It's already available there. These are all exciting stuff for retail.
Okay, we're gonna tackle that expansion in a few minutes, but I want to go back to you. Right? How would you describe yourself as a leader?
Okay. Maybe the best way, CJ, to describe that is if I can share with you my retail management philosophy or mantra.
Sure.
That's
Sure.
okay. And this mantra, I've developed this through all the mentors I've had throughout my career, right? And I've had lots. And so here it goes. This is really my saying here. The art of retail management is really the art of getting things done through other people. Again, I go back to my premise that retail is no rocket science. It's just simple, basic, fundamental things. And my point here is, as a leader, right? The philosophy of managing a single store shouldn't change when you grow to 20, 50, 100. There are some leaders nga there or owners who would say, I wish I can replicate myself so I can have more of myself as we grow. Or sometimes there's some businesses that limit their growth because there's only enough people they can trust. right? But retail management, and when it comes to leadership, is really about how do you harness this? About how do you duplicate yourself so that you can rely on the people on the ground to do what's exactly needs to be done in executing your retail value proposition and winning the loyalty of your customers. But it has that, and it's not just about knowing how to do it, but really passionate and dedicated in doing it, right? For me, with that saying, that's really the kind of leadership I want to be, right? I don't want to be the leader just to manage and tell them, do this, follow me. It's important for me to understand what is the game plan, right? What is the vision? What is that clear and simple vision that we need to do to win in the marketplace, to win the loyalty of our customers better than our competitors, right? And with that single vision, in the most simplest terms, what are the few initiatives, but impactful initiatives that will get us there? And how do we work together? Because leadership is an orchestration. Diba? There's so many moving parts into retail. Diba? There's the merchants who plan the merchandise. You have the operations who execute. You have the marketing that helps bring people in. You have to orchestrate all of that. And unless you're able to motivate them to do their part and see how their contribution affects the impact of another group's contribution and how that gels. So leadership, maybe in any other industry, leadership in retail is so critical. Yeah, and there. If you look at if somebody actually studied the different motivational systems that are in place in the different retail companies, a lot of them, it could vary. Diba? Some of them got used to the boss telling them what to do. They're just always waiting for instructions. But then there are some who are more driven. They know what the end game is, and they will take that initiative. Diba? That's the kind of leader that you want to be for them, right? And to do that, it will take a lot of things. Diba? It's not just being clear on your vision, but you have to organize. This is org development, na, diba? What programs should you be putting in place, diba? To improve competencies, to improve teamwork, yeah, and how do you motivate them on a personal level, on a group level? All of that are intertwined. No? So this is where a lot of the science come in. No? And for me, retail is more HR than anything, because you're working with people who have to execute your winning value proposition, right?
Okay, let me pick it up from there. Another challenge to that. Harness, organize, orchestrate. Now, more than ever, in the corporate world, also in the marketplace, there are 4 generations. Baby boomers like me, Gen Xers like you, Gen Y, the millennials, and even Gen Z, the older Gen Z. So
Yeah.
how do you harness these 4 age groups with different value systems to be able to deliver on that target that you want to achieve?
Okay. So maybe 5 things, if I can answer that.
Sure. Yes, please.
And the first part is really more of a premise to the next 4. My first thought there, as a premise, number one is avoid stereotypes. I know there's there's a lot of study, especially in the US, on how you should manage millennials differently from Gen X and so forth, right? But you don't want to get caught into that. No.
Okay.
This is my philosophy there, CJ. If you hired right in the first place, if your recruitment program is good, you're looking for, it's not always about the competence, it's the value system of the person you're hiring. Let's just assume you get it right? And you're hiring somebody who will be passionate about their work, right? It's really all about the thought that this person that you hired is here for a reason. Whether personal goals, he's ambitious, he wants to succeed, or the fact that he chose your company vis-a-vis another is already a powerful thing. I would focus more on that than the differences, right? On that. No? That the idea here is the stereotypes are important, but you shouldn't make that as a way to kind of think how you should manage this person. Because the next four, given that premise, is what's needed to manage that person I'm talking about, the one who's assumed to be dedicated, whether he's a millennial or a Gen X. Diba? Be clear, have clarity, right? Um, Make them understand what the game plan is to win, right? And be able to explain what kind of expectations you have, depending on the role or the department, that the role of their department, and manage them according to that, diba? But having said that, when you're being clear and providing clarity, that the third thing is be flexible naman. So I guess this is where that comes in, right? There's a difference between managing someone who's been in your company for 20 years, 30 years versus somebody who's been there for 3 months, right? Be flexible in the way you manage, and the way to mitigate and manage the flexibility is, as long as you're clear what the expectations are and what the competencies that are required, and you understand what that gap is in terms of where this person is good at. And gap could be technical gap, it could be a values gap, and a core values gap. Whether you're in the company for 3 months or 30 years, the idea is you have to, on the fourth, do personal development, train them, right? Train them on their weak areas, because that's really the most powerful way to motivate them. You know that you're there for them. And this is so essential and critical for retail, diba? The idea of retail is that it's always more cost effective to develop your people than always recruiting from the outside, right? And your HR program has to be strong enough that you have competency dictionary for almost each position, and then you're assessing the gap each time, and then you're providing personal development, right? But the bottom line is, and this is my fifth now, the bottom line here is, make sure that you have the programs in place, right? And again, this is very HR related. You have to be able to not only have the right rewards and recognition program, but you also have to have the career development program in place, right? And employee engagement program. How to get them, outside of work and stress. How do you get them to love their work and love working with each other? All of that, I think, again, retail is all about people, but it's not rocket science. It's not as, for me, as complex as a lot of research scientists says that Gen X is so different from Gen Y, right? For me, focus on the commonalities, but be flexible. But provide the personal development, provide the right training, and then lead with an inspired vision.
Okay. Engagement is one of your objectives. That's like malasakit. Is malasakit taught? Can malasakit be taught, or is it innate?
I think both.
Okay.
Right. The first objective is, in recruitment is to hire the right person. And in retail, at least from my perspective, I would favor a candidate with the right values, personal values, over technical competence, because technical competence you can really teach.
Okay.
But the value system that the person have, maybe growing up, the values that they learn from their parents or from mentors and so forth, if you see that the maturity of that individual and the focus and single-mindedness of where he wants to go in his career and how that fits into your career opportunity that you're giving them. So malasakit can be both. First, you have to find it. It's harder to teach it, but you can still don't get a hopeless case. I mean, there are other employees there who have very, mababaw interest in joining companies. They're very short-minded about, they're not clear about what they want. No, but once you find more or less the right person, you can harness that, diba? With the right HR program, you can still develop the malasakit further. But di ba meron kasabihan sa retail na you have to make your employees feel important and taken care of, because that's when they'll take care of your customers. I think a lot of retailers say that. A lot of retailers
That's true.
leaders say that, right? So as long as you have really a good HR program in place, no, that malasakit can be taught, and it's by example, diba? You see everybody doing it. The leader, the boss, is living the values, right? And everybody else wants to follow. So you will follow na rin, diba?
Do you
So
enjoy? There are more than 50 stores for Metro. Have you visited all the stores?
I would say about 95%. There are still those far-flung stores in the edge that I haven't had a chance to visit.
Is it important for leaders in head office to visit their stores?
Of course, that's the probably one of the most important way to build that malasakit that we're talking about, right? Leaders have to be visible to the people running the front line, and also developing a relationship with them as best as you can. So the best way to do that is to visit. And I love visiting stores.
Yeah, it's fun and all the food that they serve you, right?
Yeah.
Manuel, how many years have you been physically in Metro Retail?
3 years.
How does it feel emotionally? How many years?
um, well, especially with the pandemic, much, much longer.
Okay, let's go there. Crisis. The past 3 years has not been easy with crisis. You survived. The company survived the fire in one of the biggest stores, and then the pandemic struck, and it's still lingering as of now. So let's talk about crisis management. What is a good or an ideal leader when it comes to crisis management? Let's talk about big picture first.
Yeah. I think leaders are best seen, the best of them or the worst of them will seen during a crisis, right? So it's very important to keep that in mind as a leader. No? That this is an opportunity more than ever to become the best leader you can, during a crisis. So um, there's so much there's so much emotions during a crisis, and I think everybody can relate to what happened, not only for internal crisis like the fire we had in our flagship store in 2018, but in the pandemic, diba? It was really more than anything an emotional roller coaster for anybody that had to go through that. I mean, I remember when this started about a year ago, this pandemic, diba, in March,
Yes.
we were thinking, siguro 3 months lang to. We were even, debating the merits of be the first to start using masks at that time. I mean, we didn't know. I mean,
Right.
one thing about retail leadership is when you have a lot of experience, you can always brag that you've been there, done that, right? The reason why you can become a good retail leader is dinaanan ko na yan eh. This is what we do, to remedy the situation. I've been there, right? But in this case, it's so unprecedented because you're not talking about an operational challenge. It's a scientific and a health, even deadly situation that you didn't understand, right? And there was just so much chaos that was happening in the beginning, especially in the beginning, with what the national government needed to do versus the local government, and the mandate that was given for essential retailers to provide essential goods. I mean, we had to manage through all of this, and the scare of the health risk and the scare for economic uncertainty was adding a lot of pressure and stress to everybody, right? So if you can imagine all of that, and I'm sure everybody here can relate to that, no? What kind of leader should you be during this time, right? And And the big challenge here is, how do you become that leader virtually? Because you, like we were talking about the importance of store visits, right?
Yes.
And you couldn't, no. So leadership in a crisis is very important, because you need to manage people's emotions as you're steering the company through the challenges.
How did the pandemic affect you on a personal level?
Um, a lot of stress, because you know things were happening that were just so unprecedented. You have to make decisions on the go, right? Not knowing really, what the impact will be. Sometimes you just have to make a call. Like, for example, should we buy this essential item in one container or not? They're just, and you have to decide right there and then, diba? So that was quite stressful for all of us who had to make those decisions that we weren't really sure, untried, untested areas. No, so personally, I was not only stressed about making those quick decisions, but also what the emotions that everybody was going through.
So when you had that moment, okay, did you feel that that was a strong way of connecting to your team? That moment that you had to give a painful decision.
Yeah, so that's really connecting to your key question of how important leadership is in the crisis. It's emotional. So the best way to really connect during this crisis is emotionally.
Okay.
If there is empathy and understanding of what they're going through, that's already a big thing, and that's very important for any leader to do in any situation, in any industry, right?
But on ground, how do you manage the emotions of your employees? What programs do you put in place? I'm sure our audience would like to hear what good practices from your organization.
Okay, so when the pandemic started, our first focus was on our employees. At the very least, we needed to manage their fear of the malasakit of being a frontliner. Because imagine they're going to be sacrificing their whole family for them to work in the store and serve the needs of the Filipino, right? So the first thing that we did was to ensure the best way we can a safe working environment. All the basic stuff. No? So when you go to work, at least you kind of manage the stress and worry about will it be safe. Diba? Second, there were, during the first few months of the pandemic, diba, with the lockdown from the LGUs and the national government, there wasn't even public transportation. Some of them had a hard time going to work. So we addressed all of that, right? We provided transportation support through a shuttle service. We provided housing for those who had a hard time. So we were basically serving the most basic yung hierarchy of needs, diba? The very least make it very safe for them. And then remember the time when all the department stores had to close?
Right.
Here, we as best as we can afford, we tried to continue with the salaries, the best we can. We provided assistance for basic needs like rice and so forth. So maybe you cannot manage their personal stress that's happening, that's unique in their house, that may vary from person to person. But at least take care of that. And if there's anything that any employee is going through, of course we have our HR people in the store, right, or in the warehouse, or even in the office that they can talk to. So even from a medical standpoint, no, we have a company doctor, we had nurses that provided support for them, or any questions that they may have. No? So those are the basic things I feel that are critical, no, in managing your employees. make them feel that as you ask them to serve a noble purpose, that you provide the essential services to alleviate their fear and worry, as you ask them to serve the Filipino on that noble cause.
And they continue to serve the Filipino people as economic frontliners, and more so now we are on MECQ season 3. So
Yeah.
that I'm sure your program continues. Now, picking up the pieces. The pandemic has been around for going on second year 2. But when I look at the investors briefing, it seems that you have a lot of things happening, a lot of things you're doing. You're opening stores. You have a corporate social responsibility program. Maybe you can share with us what are those things you are doing that's becoming the silver lining despite the pandemic.
Yeah. So what we did, CJ, is when the pandemic started last year, the first thing we did was to pivot our whole annual operating plan, our whole strategic plan, and what we did was we focused on 4 pillars, right? So the first one is the importance of social responsibility. So the first thing we did to adjust our organizational focus is to build our brand's credibility and build trust with our customers through social responsibility. So the first thing is, as I said, we focus on our employees' safety and welfare, right? As we ask them to continue to work. Safety programs in place and support system. Second is we focus on providing a safe shopping environment for our customers. So the safety protocols that we put from the beginning of the journey all the way to the end of the journey, and even post, right? Third is, as part of the building trust and confidence, is we focus our CSR also on local communities, especially the ones that were afflicted, through the efforts of the frontliners, like the medical frontliners, and also the efforts of the local government in supporting consumers or families, within the stores where we serve. So that was the first pillar, building trust and confidence, right, through your brand, through social responsibility. The second thing that we changed, and transformed in our strategy was the necessary pivoting of merchandising and marketing strategies. My point here is the pandemic obviously changed consumer behaviorism, right? It changed it in 2 fundamental ways. Social distancing fear limited the traffic visits, right? And also the imposition of lockdown measures also affected visits and transaction counts. Right? Second thing is the pandemic changed consumer behaviors where demand for more essential categories grew and demand for non-essential categories dropped, right? The point here is, even in the pandemic, you have to continue your engagement with your customers and continue to put them at the center of everything we do, because there are still opportunities in even in those consumer behavior changes. So the second pillar was about pivoting our merchandising in terms of where should we focus our buys on what is needed. How do we get better value for our customers, through better negotiation and, for items that are essential and in demand, right? And then from a marketing standpoint, how do you now drop and change your marketing calendar, right, into providing marketing solutions for that restricted living lifestyle? Everybody's working at home, everybody's pretty much studying at home. So that was the second thing that we did there, CJ, for pivoting your marketing and merchandising. The next two, I'll just say this very quickly. There's a defense and also there's an offense. The defense is really about adjusting your operations, right? Given the changes in demand and maybe the volume of sales. A lot of retailers are multi-format. Some are growing, like groceries are growing, but department stores are dropping. So you have to make those operational adjustments, even just to survive, right? Yeah. But the last thing na lang is, while you play defense, you have to make sure that you're preparing for when you recover. Right? You can't just play defense the whole time. The offense that we did was, number one, of course, everybody's talking about omni-channel, right? There is really a change again in the behavior with this involvement in technology. So we have to adapt our strategy and develop new channels. But even there are opportunities for expansion, and that's, I think, one of your questions now.
Yeah.
Because you know, there are formats like that are essential, right? And like I mentioned to you earlier, CJ, diba? Only 40% of total retail is modern. There's a green field of markets to explore. So even department stores have opportunities in certain markets. But maybe a rethink department store, you have to be space efficient already.
No.
So, we develop and launch our compact department store. And when you bring these value propositions in new markets, so opening more supermarkets and even selectively opening still a few department stores where you're adding a new value proposition to the customers in that market, no? All of this presents opportunities as an offense, diba? And of course, everybody's talking about bounce back marketing, right? Even the impact to your existing non-essential formats, you have to start thinking about, okay, when things start to get better, with the health risk and the consumer spending is starting to increase, you better be ready. You have to start planning, right, for your bounce back, right? So these are the offense naman there, CJ. So it's really four pillars that we looked at in managing in a crisis.
Very interesting, the bounce back. So does your bounce back include a lot of technology that you have to introduce or retool in your operations?
Okay, so when we talk about omni-channel, diba? Seamless, that's really the future, right? I think we can throw data on the table here about how much e-commerce as a percent of GDP is increasing in the Philippines from year on year, and this pandemic has really accelerated the need for that, right? So having an omni-channel approach and an e-commerce online channel approach is essential in all retail strategies, right? So yes, technology plays a part of that, right? But as the importance of online sales increases through the years, there's another interesting fact here, for me. This is for me, just to share. About 60% of all e-commerce sales today in the Philippines are in NCR.
Okay.
Close to 50% are just in Metro Manila.
All right.
6% is in Cebu. So that means e-commerce is more critical for any retailer. No? Your e-commerce strategy is more critical in NCR. But when you think of provincial sites, the countryside, it's still your basic value proposition. You're introducing basic things. A new shopping experience in supermarket that you introduce in a developing market outside of the main cities, right? Or a department store that has national brands. So it's really a combination of the two. And as a multi-format retail company that has its footprint in many markets, there's really opportunity still to grow even the brick and mortar.
Oh, you brought that up. The challenge of brick and mortar versus online. Do you see online replacing brick and mortar? I know you said that brick and mortar is going to be your breadwinner. I remember one of your interviews.
Okay. Maybe in my lifetime, my answer is no.
Okay.
And I only have maybe a few decades to go here, but in my answer is, in my lifetime, I do not believe online will replace brick and mortar, right? And again, especially in the Philippine context, The online is very important, but especially for urban markets. And urban cities, you can just count how many they are. But urbanization is rapidly increasing in the Philippines. All right. So I believe online will be important, but it will be 3%, 4% of the total business of most retailers. I'm talking about big
Right.
retailers.
Right.
Maybe it will increase in time, no? But it really depends. If you're a retailer and your footprint is just mainly in Metro Manila, then maybe online is a much more important in your strategy. But if you're all over the Philippines, then you can rely more on even still on the brick and mortar.
Okay. Okay, let's talk about engagement. This time, engagement of communities. Is CSR something companies should really do, retailers should do? Uh, because I've seen one of your CSR projects even won a Quill Award recently.
Yes, yes. So one thing we can say about the role of CSR in our company is this. No? The first thing is CSR is what gives us our heart, right? And it plays a very significant part of our corporate culture. And this value started from our founders, Victor and Sally. This is something very close to their heart that we will not stop. No? So the idea of having CSR play an important role is going to continue to happen to us. So the goal here is reaching out to those in need and caring for them like we would our own family. So this is where we select who we want to work with. And right now our focus is really on several things. And a lot of them are about the values of our founders. So number one, addressing the needs of the most vulnerable. So our CSR programs focus on the following things. One is education. Another one is employment, livelihood, environmental protection, volunteerism, community outreach, and community service. So we have a tremendous list of advocacies and programs that we're happy to share, but they're all focused on this addressing this most important need that we think are important, with the communities that we serve. And it's really about establishing long-standing partnerships with different non-government agencies and organizations from the private sector and even the government who are championing these kinds of advocacies. So we focus a lot on that.
Okay. Now, fire, typhoon, pandemic. What are the two key lessons you learned from all this crisis that you've been through at the helm of Metro Retail Stores Group Incorporated? Key lessons.
Okay. For me, the first lesson is, and we talked about this, CJ, now, is the importance of leadership. When an organization is going through a lot of crisis, not only from an operation standpoint, but even from an emotional standpoint, leadership is very important to keep everybody at bay. Second important thing is, the a crisis as big as this pandemic have affected many types of businesses in different ways. Some much more severe than others, right? And sometimes it gets to the point, depending on how any business is affected here, depending on how the gravity of the impact. Sometimes you have to think that the most important thing is to survive and weather out the storm. So there are a lot of things that are needed to do that. One of them is you have to adjust, within your organization. But the other important thing is, this is really the best time to really, in retail, you're working with so many things. No, you're working with suppliers, you're working with landlords, you're working with service providers. This is really the time that we should all work together, and survive. Again, some are more hit than others, no, more severely hit than others. And this is the time we should listen to each other, support each other, to make sure that we get through all of this. Right?
Okay, last two questions. So we've covered a lot of ground here. Okay, my last two questions. How do you deal with stress and pressure? Are you already a plantito? Have you eaten so many ube pandesals?
Yeah. Actually, it's I'm not only into the plants, no, but we even have names for our plants. They're
Okay.
friends. And I don't know if this is really the effect of the pandemic, but I have conversations with them too at night, especially when they're not growing the flowers are not growing.
As long as they don't answer back, that's fine.
Yes, yes. Yeah, but I also got into cooking. And it's one way of really bonding with the family. I never really cooked before. I never really had the time, but now I had the time. Thank goodness to YouTube, I became a chef of some,
Wow.
right? Yeah, and I enjoy cooking that. Then last, of course, is to strike the work balance is the exercise. I got into new things that I never done before because I used to play basketball and now bawal ang group sports, di ba?
Yeah, groups for the contact sports, yes.
Yes, contact sports. So I got into this new thing called rope flow, which is like a combination of jump rope and aerobics. It's like dancing to music and it's fun, right? And then another thing is just recently I bought a bicycle.
Okay.
So I've been biking a lot now, with the full gear, So yeah, it's you have to keep your sanity, amidst all the stress. And it's different now when you're working at home. But before, when I used to go to the office, I can leave my work life there and just
Right.
on my personal life at home. But here, I'm working at home, so I need to really find some outlets now.
Right. Do you think it got you out of your comfort zone?
Which one?
The pandemic.
I think the best way to describe what the pandemic did to me was it was just a whole level of stress. I mean, I eat stress for breakfast, right? I mean, I think every retailer will say that, right? But the kind of stress that you have during this time during the pandemic, it's like running a sprint with no ending, right? Like you can't really stop, and so you really have to find ways, like you said, the plantitos is one way, you really have to find ways to be able to keep your balance, right? And I know it's not easy for a lot of people, but it's very important.
All right. It's already April and we have 8 months to go. What's your outlook for the balance of the 8 months? For the balance of 2021?
Okay, first, foremost, I think a lot of it will have to do on how well our vaccination program happens, right? So we already know it's already coming in, and we're expecting the third quarter to be a critical set of months in getting into a level where more people are vaccinated. No? So I think that's very important for the industry, right? But the other critical thing that has to happen is, our industry is our economy actually is driven by the consumption spending. And with what has started happening already in the third quarter last year, all the way to this year, where there's a lot of unemployment, or a lot of people that have lower income. Yeah, consumption spending will take a while to even with with the vaccine. If people don't have job or their income is less, you're still going to expect the consumption spending to affect retail. So I think the role of the government is very critical, post the vaccine stage, on how to revive the economy. You've seen like I think the U.S. government is doing a good job of trying to revitalize the economy again and creating jobs again. And there's so many businesses, retail businesses, medium size, small size, that were severely affected. And these people employed a lot of people, right? And that needs to be addressed. I think those two things are very critical for retail, in the next 12 to 16 months.
Okay.
I don't know what the impact of the year of election will be. I hope they don't lose track of focusing on the economy during this period. So those are all very, very critical.
Okay. Last question. Any words of advice for our members, our audience, as we navigate through the disruptive time?
Yes. So again, some businesses are affected more severely than others. Some are still okay. Some are have probably even closed. So my message to all, those who are affected in varying degrees, is to have hope, right? That this is not going to be forever, right? The best thing, when you're trying to navigate all the challenges, is to think of just surviving. My second message to everybody, and retail is like I said, is a whole value chain, right? It's starting from suppliers, manufacturers, service providers, landlords, right? This is really and I know it's happening, CJ, but we need to do more of this. We need to talk to each other and support each other, right? This is really the best time to renegotiate any contract that you have. Okay?
Whoops, you're putting ideas. Okay, fair.
But a lot of people are doing that, and they're helping. You have landlords helping out retailers, adjusting for them. Suppliers helping retailers helping suppliers, and it's great that it's happening. But we need to do more of that. And I think the best way to do that is to harness it. And I think this is where the PRA can really come in. This role of the PRA to put people together, through the programs that you guys have, right? And start talking. And if we can help each other to get this through until the hard part, and we go back to normal, then we're all going to be much in a better place.
So now more than ever, the retail village has to have Kapit BC.
Correct. Exactly.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Manuel. Ladies and gentlemen, our friend Manuel Alberto, the President and Chief Operating Officer of Metro Retail Stores Group Incorporated. Manuel, thank you so much for spending time with us. It's a great coffee session.
Yes, I enjoyed it. Thank you very much for this opportunity, CJ.
You're very welcome, and thank you for joining us. And before we go, I'd like to do a special shout out to the G's. The G's, the founding family of Metro Retail Stores Group. Ma'am Sally, Ma'am Margaret, Doc Edward, Sir Jack, and Chairman Frank. Hello, and my friends from Metro Retail, thank you very much. And I know you're going to be watching this. There's your president, Mr. Manuel Alberto. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much again for joining us in the fourth Let's Talk Retail podcast. And we look forward to seeing you again next time. This is CJ Hasena from the Shangri-La Plaza. Till then, keep safe, everyone. Keep safe.